Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, David. How are you, sir?
I'm excellent. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for asking.
Brilliant. Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blue. And this week we are helping people by giving them 6 top tips to help them convert interested visitors into parents that are actually going to make an application to their school. So quite an exciting one today, I think.
Yes, I like it.
I think it's an area that certainly state schools perhaps don't recognise as an important part of the process. And maybe it's independent schools who have, admission staff and people that look at it. So it's a really important one, I think, for schools and academies to consider and take a look at.
Yep.
So, as usual, I will take you through what those 6 tips are right at the front end, just to whet your appetite so you know what's coming up. So our 6 top tips, and excuse me for reading these, but so these are 6 top tips. This is to really help your school convert interested parents. So parents that are showing an interest in your school, how do you actually get them to the point where they're going to put your school as the first choice? The first one really is recognizing that your school has a role in the admissions process. Second point is making sure you gather valuable information from your visitors and from those prospective parents. Point number 3, establish a clear visitor follow-up plan. Point number 4, make sure that you provide yourselves with the opportunity to answer any objections that parents might have. Point number 5 is ensure that your staff understand their role within the admissions process. And point number 6 is that you need to regularly review the process and see where parents are dropping off in the process or losing interest. So we will jump into those and chat through them. But just before we do, just to make sure everybody is aware of all of the activity that we're up to, it isn't just out of the blue that we're involved with. We basically spend our days helping schools and involved with schools and making sure that we're helping them with their branding, their communications, their marketing. So you can catch up with everything that we do on our social media channels. So we're very active on LinkedIn and Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Also worth mentioning, in a couple of weeks' time, so on November the 16th is my next brand identity masterclass. I love talking about this. I could probably do the whole episode on this, but essentially this is an online session. It's about an hour and a half. So just an hour and a half of your time, really ideal for anybody that wants to get a handle on the branding and communications and marketing for their school or for their trust. And it's an opportunity to step away and really, I suppose, look at how effectively you're doing that at the moment and take an outside view of how you're communicating to the outside world. It's a great session, lots and lots of questions and answers, and can really help you get you on the right track. So for just an hour and a half, well worth attending. All the information is on our events page on our website. And actually, if you'd like a free place, and it's usually £50, you can use the code NOVFREE. That's a handy one to say, isn't it? So that's NOVFREE, all in capitals. So if you use NOVFREE as your offer code, then you'll get a free place on that course on the 16th of November. There are still some places left, so jump on there as soon as you can if you are interested. And lastly, aside from Out of the Blue, we also have lots and lots of written blogs. So under our knowledge base on the website, you'll find loads of topics just like this, where you can get lots and lots of information about your school marketing and really help you improve things. So if there's something specific that you're looking for help with, check that out and see if there's something on there. Alternatively, by all means, get in contact with myself through LinkedIn, give us a call, fill out one of the forms on our website. We're always happy to meet up with you guys and have a chat. I'll shut up now, David, and we'll get on to the topic in hand. So 6 top tips to help schools convert interested visitors to applicants. And I said that our first top tip was really recognizing that the school has a role in admissions. And I think we've certainly noticed, haven't we, when we've dealt with independent schools, it's very well recognized. They even have admissions staff, aside from their marketing staff. So it's well recognized that there's that they have a role. I think it's because they've got a goal. Their parents are going to fill in a form, they're going to give them a deposit and get a place. But
Yeah.
State schools have a role in admissions as well, don't they?
They do, absolutely. And I think it's not always been the case that, they've not really had to think about that. But now, as multi-academy trusts are operating more as businesses, the same as independent schools, international schools, that's a real consideration. You need to be thinking about getting your school name on that selection, that list of 3 that the parents have to put down. You want it to be number 1, and at the very least, number 2 or 3 on that list. If they're not considering you and not putting you on that list, you've got no chance. So really, yes, you can't actually take them through an admissions process and take a deposit and bring them on board that way, but you can definitely keep them warm, keep them interested in your school, providing them with lots of helpful resources and nice touch points. And so when it is time to put make that school choice, that your school is at the forefront. So yeah, really important, I think.
I think it comes from because I ask this school quite often. This question quite often when I'm chatting with schools, and I will very often get an answer back that is, well, no mark admissions are handled by the local authority, and and they draw a line there. That's it. So, which I understand. I think it's there's just a subtlety to it, really, in that yes, your local authority is handling that process, is taking the applications, is processing the forms, and then will be releasing the placements and letting parents know what school they've been assigned to, or if they've got their first choice, etc.
Yeah.
So it's logical that schools think that they've not got this role in admissions, but actually what we're trying to encourage our state school clients to do is to onboard those parents as much as possible, to know, well, I know that parent's going to make us first choice. We've gone through this process. We've given them a really great introduction. They're excited about their child coming to this school. We're going to be their first choice. And that's the difference, really. Rather than them just attending an open day and then we haven't got a clue until the local authority gives us our pan back and we're 5 children short. We really can take some control over this.
And I think it's really important to think about potentially those 5 children short. Actually, that those marginal families where they're borderline, making a decision on your school or not, they're the ones that you really want to keep warm. The ones that are absolutely know they're coming to your school. You've got those in the bag, really, but it's those that are considering you and another school, or maybe have an issue with your school. How do you overcome that issue? What can you do to swing them round to your school? So actually, you've got 5, 10, 15 on a waiting list. Some are possibly going to drop off, something move or whatever. You want to just have somebody there waiting to fill that place for you, really.
Yeah.
And I think it's really useful that you mentioned the local authority. It takes care of that admissions process, really. But what can a school do? How can they keep them warm? They've applied or they've visited the school online. They've requested a prospectus. They've come to an open day. Actually, what happens next? What can a school do, a state school do to keep them? How do they do that? I mean, we know from the independent sector, but what can they do to keep them warm?
Yeah. Okay. So that first point, that is just making sure that you understand that you do have a role and you can take some control over that admissions process. So the point you're talking about there, that sort of follow-up plan, get to that in a second, because I think there's something we put our point number 2, which is gathering valuable information from your visitors.
Yes, yeah.
And the reason that we've kind of put that in before we sort of talk about that follow-up plan is it's really something we take from the commercial world. If you've ever bought a car, you'll have seen this. You'll have seen that when you walk onto a car showroom or onto a forecourt, then that annoying car salesman who comes bounding over, they always start chatting with you, or it feels like they'll just open up a conversation. But if you actually listen to what they're doing, they're asking you loads of questions that are about you and your personality and your lifestyle. And what they're actually trying to do is to build a picture of who you are and what you're potentially going to be using a car for. And in their head, they're building this picture of what car they're then going to show you, so that they can show you, if you talk about, I really like the outdoors and I've got 3 dogs and I take the dogs out and we get muddy and well, he's not going to show you the little coupe. He's probably going to show you the SUV, the 4x4, or something that's suitable for your lifestyle, because he'll be able to match it. He'll say, going outdoors, this will get you anywhere you want to go. Look at how easy it'd be to throw the dogs in the back and you won't worry about it getting muddy. That's why he's asking the questions, which is a rather convoluted way of me explaining that we can do the same thing with parents. So those conversations that we have 2 major benefits. The first one is it makes parents feel like you're really interested in them, and that you value them as people. Really, they were a really friendly school, is the feedback that you get from a school that asks lots of questions. But the information you get from that about the child, about the child's interest, about what parents want from a school and what they value, allows you to present your school in a particular way to them when you're giving them the tour, or you're having that chat with them after the tour in the headmaster's office. And just make sure that you're showing them the bits of your school that fit with what they're after. You don't have to show everybody everything. You don't have to show every parent the same thing. You can show them the parts of your school that are going to excite them and are going to help sell your school to them.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about there in that.
And I think you can take notes about parents as well. So really important to get their names and their contact details. So easy to forget that part, but actually you want to be able to follow up any communication, any contact that you've had with them. Send them a nice thank you letter and another one in a couple of months' time to see if they're still interested, and invite them in for a coffee morning or something. So gathering that data, those contact details, is really important. And then actually following that up and keeping them warm, keeping them interested, and knowing what they spoke about when they came to visit, or they spoke to you on the phone. Having those notes alongside that data, so you can just refer back to it. It shows that you care, and that you've paid attention, and you're probably going to do that for their children as well. So
and that collecting the data is important throughout the whole process. But we get to point number 3 there, that making sure you've got a clear follow-up plan for people who visited. So just knowing what you're going to do. You can't really follow anything up if you don't know who they were. But it's amazing how many schools don't know who attended their open day. Still, that still happens, which is amazing, really. So it is important. Know who they are, and then know how you're going to follow it up. And I hear schools sometimes that are worried about that. They're worried about almost hassling parents or seeming too pushy or too salesy. And actually, if you flip that on your head, if you put yourself in the position of a parent, wouldn't you want the school to show that they cared enough to follow up and just see if you had any questions? Is there anything you're unsure of? How did you feel about the school? I'd love that. It would feel to me like that's a school that I want to be involved with for the next 6 years while my child is there, because they obviously do communicate and they obviously do care.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really vital. And I think it gives you, if you've got a plan following that initial contact, it just means that it doesn't have to take a lot of time to do that. You know what communication is going out when. It can all be templated. It can be all set out ready, so that Mr. Smith on reception knows that these 5 people visited the school this week. They all get sent a letter 5 days after they came just to thank them for that and, invite them to the next coffee morning or whatever. But it just, having that plan in place means that everybody knows, and I know we're going to come to that point about the staff, everybody knows when things should happen, and there is an executable plan in place, which doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to be nice. It just needs to be warm and friendly to keep people interested.
It's key, isn't it? That knowing that plan is in place. Okay.
Nurturing your sales lead, I think you would probably refer to it as, Mark.
I would, yeah. I'm not sure schools would be massively comfortable with that idea, but it is what we're talking about.
Yes,
absolutely. It brings us on to point number 4, which is we've touched on really. It's making sure you've got the opportunity to answer objections that parents might have. There's a number of things we hear from parents when schools adopt this admissions process. The first one is that we hear parents say, we felt part of the school before our child had even joined because there was so much communication coming back. We didn't just attend the school, but then there was a follow-up. We had a chat with the head teacher. We got a lovely letter. We got sent an information pack, and they feel part of that family, which helps them make that choice. But the second thing is that from your point of view of the school, what's most annoying is finding out that a parent discounted your school for a reason that isn't even true, for something they've misunderstood or misinterpreted or got wrong, and it happens. It really does. So just having that opportunity to say, will you be putting us as first choice? Is there, it's fine if you're not. Is there a reason why you wouldn't? And they tell you and you think, well, that's not even right. I can answer that. I can make you feel better about that. No, let me assure you that this is the case. And all of a sudden, if you've converted that one parent and that was the only reason they were discounting the school, there's your funding for another child for 6 years. It's so important. It's, it's fundamental.
And I think it's especially important to be able to do that I think many schools in the sector would say that they have a communications issue of one form or another. That may be reputation, it may be that there's some gossip going around, and it gives you an opportunity to actually set the record straight.
Yeah.
Where, if they come to the school, there's no follow-up, or they've requested something via the website, and there's very little follow-up and very little questioning or being able to answer questions, it doesn't really help the situation. That gossip's only going to grow, and that reputation's only going to be more and more tarnished. And I think by having the opportunity to answer those questions from the horse's mouth, as it were, then it can really change perceptions about the school. And it shows that, again, the school cares enough to want to answer those questions and alleviate any issues or not frustrations, but possible situations which are, like you say, we're not really there by answering them.
We chat through that a little bit on the masterclass. We talk about the school having the loudest voice. So very often the school doesn't have the loudest voice because you've got Mumsnet and Ofsted and Facebook and lots of other ways that people talk about them. So having the loudest voice, it all comes back to your school brand. It comes back to your brand messaging and your brand character, and the way that you present yourselves to the outside world helps guide what that response is going to be to parents, because you feel much more comfortable in the way that you communicate. So anybody that's worried about that or has those concerns, join me on the masterclass. We talk through that a little bit, and it can really help. We get some good feedback about that element, because it's often something that schools haven't really considered or don't realize they can get some control of, Okay. This next point, I think, is I like this because we've said ensure your staff understand their role within the admissions process. So your staff, your SLT, understand that. And I suppose the point I'm trying to make here is that you're a team of people, and actually the mistake that often happens, I say that quite a lot. I keep telling schools they make a mistake, but the way that they hamper themselves often is to say, well, Mrs. Smith on reception looks after our marketing and communications. It's her responsibility. She does all of that. And again, in the masterclass, we talk about how your school character should be reflected across your staff. So the whole staff body is actually part of your admissions process. So no, they might not be involved in sending out a letter to a parent, but when that parent's visiting the school, your staff are part of your school brand. And the way that the parent is being sold the school is just in the way that they conduct themselves, the friendly, welcoming, sort of character that they present. So go on.
No, and they're on board with that as well. That I was having a conversation this week. Somebody from an international school group, and two of the most fundamental elements of marketing and admissions that they have is internal communications and then external communications. And if you can't get your internal communications right and working efficiently and effectively, it's very difficult to then get the external communications working, because it has to come from internally first. Everybody needs to feel positive and confident and understand what the school is about or what the trust is about. And then when they're talking about it between themselves, externally, at events or even to parents in the playground, they're talking about it in the same way. So I think comms is really important, and getting the team on board first is probably a crucial step before considering your external comms. It's great to have lots of external comms going out, but if that's not what happens when the parents come to the school playground or come to your open day, there's something breaking down there. So it's got to be right internally first.
There's a little trick that anybody watching this could try. So if you're a head teacher and you're wondering, are my communications right? Are they reflecting the character that I want them to? Are we giving the right impression out? Take a look at your last newsletter and take a look at the content of it. And if you've got a newsletter that tells parents off for where they've parked, tells them off for not paying the dinner, I nearly said pocket money, paying their dinner money, complains about pupils not having the right uniform on, not returning library books, tells them when they shouldn't be on the playground. And I've seen newsletters that are nothing but wrapping parents on the hand and telling them off. Then your communications internally and externally are probably out of kilter, not where they need to be. So if you've got a newsletter that is celebrating the successes of your school, is exciting, is an insight into the wonderful work that you do as a school on a daily basis. All schools are doing wonderful work. And if your newsletter is excitedly talking about that and informing parents about it, who remember are sat at home and don't see it, they're not there all day long. They're at work and they very rarely access your school environment. Then it's probably more likely that you've got this brand character right and that you've got your internal communications right. So have a look. If you're a head teacher that doesn't really know whether you've got your communications right, take a look at your newsletter. Have a look at what's being put in it and what it says. That'll give you a really good insight as to how it's
It'll be interesting to see some comments with what those newsletters are saying.
And then give us a call and we can have a chat and see how we can help you.
And help out with that. Yeah.
Our last point before we finish is all about reviewing the process. So we've talked about collecting the data, and you've made the point, David, of just knowing who they are, knowing who these people are, so that you can respond to it. There's a really useful thing that you can do, which is to gather some of that data and follow it through. So how many people attended open day? how many people inquired, how many people then came to an open day or a tour, how many of them people responded, so that you're following through at what stage in your admissions process parents left the process, lost interest. If you get 100 applications and you only get 5 people attending an open day, then right early on in your process, there's a big hole. There's something we need to do. And it's really useful. It helps you. We talk about this quite a lot on this program, and we talk about it a lot on the masterclass as well. It helps you guide where you're going to spend whatever little amounts of money you've got to spend on communications. We've got to make sure that that's targeted at the right place. And that review of how the admissions process is working can really help do that. Yeah.
No, it's a great point, that one. I think it goes to say with many things in life that you should review and improve the process that you're going through. And I think those that are experienced with looking at processes like that, we'll take that on board and say, right, the website, we've no idea who's downloaded our prospectus because we don't have a form on there to capture that data. So we've no idea who's got the prospectus. And like you say, if people are applying through the website, but they're not actually attending, then there's something there. Maybe there's not even a follow-up email or letter going out thanking them for applying, or a phone call. And it's simple, usually very cost-effective things that can be done to fill those gaps and to make sure that people are turning up.
Absolutely. It costs you nothing often, some of the holes that you can find. I think if you can adopt that, instruct and then review model that you're all doing all the time in education. All of education has been reviewed since the year dot, hasn't it? It's the bit we all hate, to be fair. So it's absolutely crucial that we get that, because you'll just avoid wasting money moving forward.
And you should look for our episode about mystery shopping, because that will help in terms of how to put that process together, what to be looking for, how to go about checking your admissions process and seeing where those holes are.
Are you just mentioning that because you recorded it dressed as Dracula?
It's quite easy to spot. I'll say that, yes.
Everyone's intrigued now, and we'll go and find that episode, I'm sure. David, thank you so much for attending this afternoon. I'm hoping that everyone has found that really useful. They were our 6 top tips to help you convert those interested visitors into applications to your school. And if you get one more child's bum on a seat, then just think of how that's going to affect the funding for the school. So hopefully these have worked for you. If there's anything that we've raised that you'd like some more information on, then feel free to get in contact. I'm on mark@blueappleuk.com. Drop me an email. You can find loads more information, as we mentioned at the top of the show, on our website, and visit the knowledge base, where you can find lots of episodes like this and lots of our written blogs as well. David, thank you.
And don't forget, Mark, 16th of November.
16th of November for
1 p.m.
I thought I'd pushed that too much already. So.
Yeah, you can never push it too much.
It's I always enjoy doing them because they're so involved, and I always get loads and loads of questions. And I think, I know from the feedback we get, people get a lot from that. So don't be afraid of attending. You don't even have to say a word. You can just sit and watch if you want to, but it can be really useful. Great. Well, hopefully I'll see some of you then. Thanks, David.
Okay. Thanks very much, Mark.
See you again. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Out of the Blue, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave a comment below, and please ring the bell for notifications. I hope I will see you again soon. Bye!